Okay.
in Dallas, and he actually is alumni from U of A, but
Oh,
he teaches accounting at Walton.
okay. Maybe I know him by sight.
He's bald. He has this great big smile. He's so much fun.
Okay, well, I'm going to go look him up now. I'll do that when I go back to the office.
Barrbryan. He
Okay.
used to teach at Auburn, I think, when he first.
Oh,
He also has his PhD in accounting from A&M in
okay.
Texas.
Oh, cool.
He's
Yeah,
so cool. You should talk to him.
I will. I will. Yeah, the Walton College has a lot of really interesting and well published faculty. It's a pretty fun place to work.
He has a really great story too.
Yeah,
I know you got to teach.
yeah, that's okay.
Afterwards.
I'm technically, I'm a member of the marketing department faculty, and my area of interest is nonprofits. And I kind of came about it in a very circuitous route, which I won't tell you the whole story, but the short story is that a friend of mine got a Rockefeller Foundation grant to do some rebranding and reorganizing of a nonprofit for which she was the executive director. And they hired me to help them go through this process. And it was about a 6-month process. And it was super labor intensive. And as time went by, I realized how much nonprofits needed help and how much they couldn't really afford me. And so I started this quest to find ways to help nonprofits in a variety of capacities. I do a lot of pro bono help. I work now through an organization known as SCORE as a volunteer, and I only work with nonprofits as a consultant through them. So you're welcome to look up SCORE. It is part of the Small Business Administration. It's not really part of the Small Business Administration, but we do a lot of work with them where they feed us a lot of clients. So I also teach a class at the university called Nonprofit. And then there's some other things going on at the university that we'll talk about today. I am by no means an expert. I found that I fell upon this topic mostly because I find it really interesting. I also feel like there's a lot of people who have a heart for service, and yeah, they need help, and we are not taught about this. I have in my nonprofit seminar that I teach, I get a lot of seniors who've never, after 3 years of being in the business college, never once talked about nonprofits in their classes. So for me, this is just it's an interest area, and so I put a lot of energy into it. Today we're going to talk about the library, and Kelly has asked me to talk about the academic path to working in the nonprofit world. My little caveat is there is more than one way. I'm going to share with you some information about various programs around the state and throughout the United States, a couple programs that I find important and well run. I'm going to talk about some that I work with personally and am in the process of developing, and just interrupt and ask questions at any point. Feel free to make this a dialogue. The first thing I thought I would talk about just super briefly, I'm assuming that the audience is well versed in this. There are multiple ways to think about jobs in nonprofits, but essentially we have senior management, programs and service delivery, administration, human resources and finance, development and fundraising, and communications, graphic design, publicist, public relations, social media manager. Most nonprofits that are small, one or maybe two people do all of these jobs, right? So this is what it looks like when you have a nonprofit that has many heads, right? You might have there are, like if you look at St. Jude's, they have an entire C-suite, right? They are a machine. If you look at a lot of the smaller nonprofits, you're very lucky if you have an executive director, maybe a volunteer coordinator, and maybe a development officer. I mean, that's a lot, right? And everybody's wearing multiple hats. But what I like about talking about these kind of chunks is that as you're thinking about approaching some kind of academic or some kind of additional continuing ed or additional education to serve yourself in your career goals, if you can kind of figure out which of these buckets you find the most interesting, it's going to help you to guide your choices. So I just bring this up more as my own personal kind of view that you should look for niches where you are the most comfortable, your aptitudes are taken advantage of the best, okay? For example, just for development and fundraising, the Lilly School of Philanthropy out of Indiana, you can do an entire course on becoming a development officer and fundraising. It's really fascinating. I'm going to give you that information later, but there are programs out there that are geared specifically towards the various types of jobs. There are questions about any of them? How big do you work in a nonprofit?
I do.
And how big is your organization?
I'm not sure. RMHC, Ronald Dollhouse Charities.
Okay.
But I also worked for Horses for Healing for 4 years as a volunteer.
Okay.
They closed last year.
Oh no.
I know. They've been in the area for like 25, 30
Yeah.
years.
Oh, that is really a bummer.
I also worked at an after-school program in Dallas.
Okay.
Dallas Community Lighthouse. They were also a nonprofit.
Okay. So all fairly small, though.
Yeah,
Fairly
Dallas
small.
Community Lighthouse was localized. They did have, so I think the director of the Dallas area also had a Los Angeles area kind of friend
Mhm.
who was over that group and local region.
Yeah.
So we did have locations in Los Angeles and Dallas, but
Oh.
her realm of management was over the Dallas area.
Yeah. Okay.
And Horses for Healing was in Bentonville up near XNA.
Yeah.
And then Ronald McDonald House Charities is in Washington Regional Medical Center.
Okay.
So,
All right. Very cool. So, yeah. So just be thinking about the different roles, and also the other thing I think too is a lot of times in the nonprofit world, when job changes occur, it often is very quick, right? Somebody leaves, there's some kind of bad behavior, there's a disagreement with the board, things happen very quickly, and so sometimes people have to step into roles that might not necessarily be their aptitude. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, like how to get some support for that, okay? So I would say that I have some lists here, and I will share this with the library so that they can have access. You can Google and find all of these as well. But I'm just going to run through a couple existing programs that are here in Arkansas, some of which are online and some of which are face-to-face. So UALR, and I also, a caveat is I'm not super involved with most of these. I just know they exist, okay? So right now I know that UALR, right, University of Arkansas at Little Rock, has an undergraduate face-to-face programs in nonprofit studies, and you can get a minor in this area, and if you follow this link, it takes you to the courses study. Very often nonprofit programs are not based, are based in like social work or in political science or in public policy. The second is the Clinton School, of course, which is also in Little Rock. It is a degree, you can get a master's degree. They have a face-to-face and an online version. In any or all of these, I would strongly recommend you do a lot of research. I recommend you find people who've participated, particularly at the graduate level, because if you're seeking a path through the graduate level, you're going to pay a lot more money, right? There's just it's bigger stakes. And so I have heard good and bad about face-to-face Clinton program, and I've heard good and bad about the online program. I think a lot of it has to do with where you are with your career goals. I literally, truly know nothing about the UALR program except I know they exist. So the Clinton program is very immersive, particularly the face-to-face one. You are doing field work immediately. Are you guys familiar with the Clinton program? So it is a master's in public service, and you begin very early with a cohort and you have a group project that you do that's out in the field. And every year you are out in the field doing something. And very often you culminate your time there doing an international service project. Sometimes it's internal into the United States. My understanding is that people who graduate from this program, they have a very high employment placement rate. But this is the link and you can check it out. If I were young, I would probably move to Little Rock and do the face-to-face program. But it didn't exist when I was younger. The University of Arkansas here in Fayetteville, we have a minor in nonprofit studies for any student. It is an interdisciplinary minor. I'm actually in charge of it. For many years, you had to be a business student in order to get the minor, and we just changed the designation so that any student who is an undergraduate at the University of Arkansas can get a minor in nonprofit studies. There are some barriers. For example, the capstone class, which is my class, requires some prerequisites. So you do have to be a little intentional to get this minor. But if you go to the link here, it'll take you to the catalog and it will show you the classes that are available to you to take. And there's quite a few across campus, so that we tried to work with other departments so that it was an appealing minor for people in Fulbright or in the Ag College, right? Or even in architecture. Although the School of Architecture, they have a hard time taking extra classes because their class load is so burdensome. So this minor is an 18-hour minor. There are communication classes and grant writing you can take. There's social work classes. There's political science classes and public policy. There's my class, which is the nonprofit class. There's a really wonderful class taught in political science, the history of philanthropy. So there's just a wide variety of classes to choose from. There is a graduate program called a Master's in Public Administration through the Political Science Department. This is not really focused on nonprofits, but you can kind of work it to be nonprofit focused, right? But it's really geared much more towards municipalities, public policy and government, that kind of thing. It's a good program. The final one I want to talk about today is the Graduate Online Certificate. And so this is a certificate that I'm actually participating in developing. This is a collaboration between myself and another faculty member in the political science department named Thomas Adam. This is going to be a 12-hour graduate certificate, and it's going to start as an online-only program. We were hoping to make it face-to-face. If we get enough traction, eventually we will probably, hopefully, knock on wood, be able to turn it into face-to-face. One of the things we did to develop this program is we did a survey that we sent out, and I put it on Facebook and put it on like some Northwest Arkansas nonprofit area conversation boards, and I got about 75 participants, and we asked people the things that they thought they needed to help them. What skills were they missing? What things could they use help with? And we generally came back with two very strong: governance, which internally in a nonprofit would be things like, how do you run the board? What are your policies and procedures? How do you know if you have quorum? How do you get new board members? All the things that are involved with the function of the board. And another thing, of course, is always money, 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 right? So development, writing grants, understanding how a revenue works. So we've created this 12-hour certificate, which basically is 4 classes. And the 4 classes are, if you, I don't know, with the light in the room, I'm having trouble seeing, but the first one is my class, which is, You can't see them at all with the white. I'm sorry. Do you want me to change the color real quick, or you just read them?
You can just read them out.
Okay. So the first one is Public Administration, which is PADM. That's the course code. And the number is 5130. And this is the Nonprofit Management and Leadership class. So this is a class that I'm developing. I'm going to take some of what I do in my undergraduate class, but this class is really going to be focused on understanding how governance works in a nonprofit, the different components of the different jobs, how you do volunteer management. There's going to be case studies and individual studies. So you will pick a nonprofit and you will use that nonprofit to do projects throughout the semester, like rewriting governance, rewriting documents, things like that. It will also just be a very just a very hands-on class. The second one is PADM 5823, which is strategies of fundraising in the nonprofit sector. So currently Melanie Palmer, who is a prolific grant writer in Northwest Arkansas and runs her own business in grant writing, is slated to teach this class. We are working with her to have an expand, because everybody wants to write a grant, but it's so much more important to, it's a much broader. So we're going to talk about all kinds, or she's going to talk about all kinds of fundraising and financial strategies in this class. Also very hands-on. So the idea, by making it online, the idea is that people who have jobs in nonprofits can get help, right? And get better educated about the field they're working in. Also as a way to help with career ascension, right? So if you could get a graduate certificate, you put yourself in a position potentially for promotion. The third class is PADM 5923, which is the evolution of nonprofits and philanthropy in the United States. So this is a super interesting class. I teach a little bit of nonprofit history in my current undergraduate class, and we talk about the philosophical changes in historically how, the great, railroad barons, people like Carnegie Mellon, people like the Roosevelts, people like the Rockefellers, how they essentially established the system that we have now, for good or for bad. And we talk about the good and the bad in that. So this is a really interesting class. And then the fourth class for this online certificate will be an internship. If you currently work at a nonprofit, then I believe this class will be waived for you, and there'll be a way for you to fulfill the requirements within your current job. If you don't work for a nonprofit, then we will work with you to find one in which you can do a legitimate internship, and there'll be a series of assignments that revolve around what you do day to day. So this currently is in the works. We've gotten permission. We are going down to at the state level. So we've gotten permission the classes are created, the certificate has a go. We're waiting for the Board of Trustees, and we're hoping to be online in fall of 24. So in the academic world, that is lightning speed. Although to us it seems very far away. We were hoping for fall of 25 is when we're hoping to be going. We were hoping to start fall of 24, but it looks like it's going to take us to spring or fall of 25 before it happens. So a little bit of time. Okay. That's mostly what I wanted to talk about. There are other things that you can do. There are two organizations from which I have personally gotten training. One is the Lilly School of Philanthropy, which is based out of Indiana. It is a relatively expensive endeavor, and I was board chair. We voted to send our executive director to this training, and I was able to go with the executive director as well. It was a week-long intensive training on fundraising. They have an entire program where you can get a certificate It's all would be considered continuing education. It wouldn't be an academic like the ones we've talked about before, or would get you towards graduate hours or undergraduate degrees or whatever. But the Lilly School is really the preeminent in the country, and it's just, I constantly go back and reference the material that I got from my little 1-week class. It's very powerful. Another organization that I'm very fond of is known as BoardSource. I have both of the links down there at the bottom. BoardSource is a nonprofit, and it focuses on boards and on kind of board governance and public policies and procedures within a nonprofit. I did take the course to be a certified board consultant, which I do often through my pro bono work. But BoardSource has a lot of free, not a lot, I would say a good amount of free stuff that you can get access to if you're not a member. They have just some like one-sheet handouts on like board checklists and things like that that are very well put together, very well thought out. They have a really interesting white paper about the power of diversity in nonprofits and the power of voice and the economics that revolve around that. So both of these organizations are sources that I go to all the time. Other sources are Nonprofit Quarterly. You know, the government has a lovely nonprofit website, right? If you just search nonprofit government, you'll find it. It might even be nonprofits.gov. I'm not 100% sure. So those are all sources. The thing that's nice about taking some kind of structured class or some kind of structured certificate is that life is complicated, and when you're working in a nonprofit, your head is usually spinning. You usually have your fingers in a zillion pies, and it's a lot of really good intention to say, oh, I'm going to sit down and read this, or oh, I'm going to go take advantage of this resource. But when it's a class and you have to do it, we tend to make time and we become a little bit more accountable. There are people out there that are more organized than I am that I'm sure are able to like structure their work week, that they can do like a couple hours of you know, continuing ed on their very own. That's not me. I really have to have someone go, this is what we're going to do, and give me some structure. Yeah, that's what I have. I'm happy to answer any questions or any open discussion that you want to have about options. I will just say one thing about the nonprofit undergraduate minor at the University of Arkansas as it stands today. There are a few classes that have some prereqs, so it can be a little cumbersome, but I'm very proud of the fact that it is many of the classes, and that it resides, even though it's interdisciplinary and any student can take it, it resides in the Walton College. And my experience when I work with a lot of people in nonprofits is that you get to a position of power in your nonprofit, not because you have been trained in management or trained in running any government or nonprofit or even a business. You have a passion for childcare, or you have a passion for art, or you have a passion for helping people not be hungry. And so it's very often that people get into these positions of power and they're all, I laughingly say, a bunch of damn do-gooders. And it's hard to transition into that strategic role, which is really what you need when you're an executive director or a development director. You need to think more strategically. And so I'm really proud of the fact that this interdisciplinary minor resides in the business college, because we have classes that you can take that kind of help you. I mean, everybody's smart enough. That's not really the issue. It's just really about how you structure your thinking. And yeah. So, do you have questions, comments? I know this is going to be online, so my email is in the presentation, so you're more than welcome to email me. You what?
I already added you on LinkedIn.
You already added me on LinkedIn. That's great. You can add me on LinkedIn too.
As far as classes that are outside of the umbrella of this minor, what are some of the just general classes you think would be a good idea for somebody who is wanting to work in a nonprofit?
Yeah. So there are actually in moving our minor from a Walton College minor only to an interdisciplinary, we did a lot of hunting around campus, and I was surprised to find there are some technical writing classes through the English department that also have a grant writing component, which is fantastic. Now, there are some really great classes about nonprofits taught in the public relations program, the ad PR program that's through the journalism school. The problem with that is their classes are in so high demand, if you're not in their major, you probably can't get in the class. The English classes, I don't think, have that problem. If you also look at things like the sociology department and the political science department, very often what happens is these classes will be taught as special topics. So when you're looking at the University of Arkansas's catalog online for the classes, you have to click a couple clicks in sometimes to really get a sense of what the class is. Does that make sense? Because if it says political science special topics, it might be, you know, how voting machines work in the 1800s, or it could be how nonprofits impact society. And you just have to kind of click through a little bit, right? So political science, I think, is a great place to look for those classes, and sociology. Social work typically also will have classes about nonprofits. Again, the problem with that is I'm not sure, because I'm not a social worker, I'm not sure the perspective is, I'm not sure if it's more about the help that you do in the nonprofit rather than the functioning of the nonprofit. So that's kind of where there's a disconnect. And yeah, so you want to really look for classes that kind of focus on this, the function and working of the nonprofit rather than kind of the content, if that makes sense. Yeah. I also encourage people in Northwest Arkansas to join AFP, which is the Association of Fundraising Professionals. There are multiple nonprofit organizations. The problem with them is that for very long we were pretty small. And I think AFP has probably the strongest presence for nonprofits as an organization in Northwest Arkansas. So even if you're not on the development side, I still encourage people to join AFP. I feel like that allows people to find their tribe, if you will. I know that there is the Arkansas there's the Arkansas Grant Writers is it Grant Writers? I might have to look that up. I think the Arkansas Grant Writers Association, AGA maybe. And Melanie Palmer, I know, is an active member in that, and it is a national.
Professionals Association?
Say it again?
The Grant Professionals Association?
That's what it is. I think that's what it is, GPA, Grant Professionals Association. Interestingly enough, also, kind of unrelated to the work that I do specifically, but I had a small role in it, Melanie Palmer, through the Professional Grant Writers Association, got a grant, and they are funding paid internships for undergraduate students who apply, which is a really fascinating thing that they've done. I'm about 95% sure that's being funded through the Walton Family Foundation, and I've spoken with several people at the Walton Family Foundation, and they're very interested in this kind of education and support. They see the need for educated nonprofit workers, if you will. They see the need for the kind of raising the bar and help giving people an opportunity to just up their game and understand their knowledge, and so they're very excited in the conversations that I've had with them about the interdisciplinary minor and our certificate. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. And, you know, I think there were so many bad things that obviously that came out of COVID, but I think one of the positive things is that across the board, almost all of us figured out how to have really true and solid interactions online, right? And it's, I think that one of the things that I got from the survey is that 75% of the people who responded to our survey when we talked to them about the online certificate wanted either a synchronous, meaning we're all on Zoom together, or a face-to-face component. They wanted a live component. As an online class and a fully online certificate, we cannot require that to be an online, we can't require it, but I know that I'll do it. I will be doing that. I will be having weekly sessions that are synchronous that people can join. Because I do think there's so much learning that occurs just between people who are in the industry. It's a really powerful event when people can get together and just talk about what they do. So, okay.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
It's very, very informative.
I
I've been
appreciate
wondering
your.
about that for a long time.
Um,
Other people have too and will be. I know a couple of people couldn't make it today, but they'll watch it.
Yeah, yeah. So encourage people. Feel free if you're watching this on YouTube to email me. I don't plan to be going anywhere anytime soon. I'm a long resident here. I'm involved in the community. If you're interested in nonprofit mentoring, then you should look at SCORE, which is SCORE.org. And they'll ask you where, and you'll say Northwest Arkansas. I am not the only one that does mentoring for nonprofits. There are other people as well. You can request me, and if I have the bandwidth, I'd be happy to work with you. But you can request really anyone. There are many people who are. SCORE was originally started, just to give a little plug, as a organization for retired executives who wanted to give back. And so anybody in really pretty much any business capacity can reach out and ask for a SCORE mentor. And sometimes it just really helps to have an objective third party to talk to you about your stuff. I focus on nonprofits because that's what I'm interested in, but there are all kinds of mentors out there. So, okay, well, thank you very much. I'm gonna just close all this down. Would you